So this next video in section 2.2, we're going to be solving equations where our variables show up on both sides of the equal sign. And this is very different than our combining like terms. There we go. Alright, so when we did combining like terms, our variables were on the same side of the equal sign, so we did as it told us. But because our variables are on opposite sides of the equal sign, if we're going to cross the equal sign, then we've got to do that opposite operation. So you can do one of many ways. I tend to move my variables to where they will stay positive. But if it helps to remember letters left, then you can think letters left. So I'm going to zero out this 4x by subtracting 4x from both sides. And so we're doing that SPOE, subtraction property of equality. So 6 minus 4 gives us 2x minus the 9 equals the 4x minus 4x is 0 plus 3. And then from here, this is just a two-step equation now. So I'm going to use APOE, addition property of equality, and I'm going to add 9 to both sides. And so I'm going to be left with 2x equals, and then 9 plus 3 is 12. My next step is that I'm going to do a division property of equality, and I'm going to divide both sides by 2. That makes this a 1x. And then 12 divided by 2 leaves us with 6. And as all the others, we can check our answers by plugging that in. So we'd have 6 times 6 minus 9 equals 4 times 6 plus 3. And so 6 times 6 is 36, minus 9 would equal 4 times 6 is 24 plus 3. And 36 minus 9 is 27. And 24 plus 3 is 27. So since I end up with 27 equals 27, I know that x equals 6 is indeed the correct answer. Alright, so here we have a word problem. So a town's population is 14,000, so we have total pop 14,000, and it's increasing by 160 people each year. So increase 160. A nearby town has a population, so we'll call this total pop for town A, and then total pop, sorry for that weird long pause, total pop for town B, and its total population is 24,000. It is decreasing, so a decrease of 200 people per year. And we want to know in about how many years the population of the towns will be equal. So we're wanting town A to equal town B. And so what I know about town A is that it starts at 14,000 and that it increases. So an increase would mean addition. So we're going to add 160 people every year. So every is equal to per. And so that's 160 per year or every year, so we'll call that Y for year. And then I want it equal to town B, and in town B I know we have 24,000 people. It is decreasing. Decreasing means subtraction. So we're going to decrease by 200, again, every year. So that's going to be our y, because we're still working years, so they're the same variable. So that's my equation. Now from here we need to solve for y. So I'm going to add 200y to both sides. Because that will zero out the y's on the right. So I have 14,000 plus 360y. And again, the reason I moved this negative 200, made it plus 200, is because this will be positive. If I moved the 160, then I would have a negative variable. Excuse me. And I do my best to avoid negative variables because we tend to drop negatives when they're with our variables. Alright, so then from here, so that was an APOE, was that step, right? Addition, property of equality. Here I'm going to do an SPOE, and I'm going to subtract the 14,000 from both sides. That will become 0, and so we get 360y equals 10,000. This is multiplication, so the inverse operation would be to divide. So DPOE would be my next step, and I'm going to divide by 360. And when I divide by 360, I get that y is about 27.78. And so it wants to know in about how many years. So that's about, and that's a key word there, about. That is about 28 years. So that about tells us that we are estimating, we're rounding in some form. And so that's why we're doing 28 as opposed to 27.78. Excuse me. All right, example 3. In this one, again, I tend to move variables to where they will keep or stay positive. So I'm going to add a to both sides. So 6a plus 1a, that's a terrible looking a. Now that looks like a 19 instead of a 1a. Let's try this again. A. Alright, so 6a plus 1a is 7a plus 14 will equal a negative 7. Now, I can't always make both sides a positive, but we tend to not drop negatives when they are our constant term as opposed to our variable term. Alright, so our first step was that adding 1a to both sides, so that was APOE. So now we're going to do a subtraction of 14 from both sides, so that's an SPOE. So now I have 7a, 14 minus 14 is 0, equals a negative 21. Let me double check, yep. And then to get a by itself, I'm going to do a DPOE. And I'm going to divide both sides by 7. And so a will equal a negative 3. Because when we take a negative divided by a positive, we get a negative answer. And if I want to double check myself, I can plug it back into both of these, keeping in mind that I should do that with parentheses, so that I don't end up losing that negative with the 3. So 6 times the negative 3 is negative 18. plus 14 would equal a negative 7. Negative, negative makes this plus 3. Keep, flip, change. So a negative 18 plus 14 is a negative 4. And a negative 7 plus 3 equals a negative 4. And so, since both of them are correct, that means A equals negative 3 is the correct answer. We've got 3 more examples, but this video is getting long, so I'll see you on the other side.